Hello and welcome to the Fantasy Survival Guide. My name is Mage, and today we're doing a sort of response video to Shadiversity. Really enjoyed the video. It was the big three, working on how easy it is to climb something and fight it. This is a common trope in video games and TV. A recent one is Dragon's Dogma, but can go back all the way to Shadow of the Colossus, even Legend of Zelda with Breath of the Wild, climbing the taluses and other large creatures. This isn't really to dog on any of the things they did in the video. I did enjoy it. I just figured I'm actually kind of qualified to do this. I've never won any competitions. I've never won any qualifying race or anything like that, but I'm a decent climber. Rock climbing, tree climbing, any sort of thing like that. And I feel like I could take a pretty good shot at this. On the sword fighting side, I am actually a fencer. I have a HEMA club that I'm part of, and I've been trained with a variety of weapons. I've actually brought many of these weapons here, though I have opted for more of the foam. For the most part, they are foam weapons, as well as a few blunts. I've left most of my more dangerous weapons at home due to the fact of me not wanting to harm the tree, or whatever else I'm climbing. Regardless of all that, this is my first attempt. This is a pretty decent tree, and it is soaking wet. I'm actually happy about this. It's been raining for the past few days, and this is actually representative of how a battle may be. Battle's not going to be perfect. If you're in a desert, sure. If you're climbing some sort of stone monster that hasn't seen water in years, that's fair. But if you're fighting a dragon, if you're fighting a larger creature, it would get bloodied, it'd get messy. Your own blood, its blood, whatever thing. And if you're trying to hurt it, it would just be a huge wrench in whatever you're doing. And so this being wet is actually a pretty decent thing of sort of testing this on relative hard mode. The first weapon I'm going to take a look at is this beautiful dagger I got from Todd Cutler. It's a 14th century Quillon dagger, if memory serves me right. It's got some Khazdur runes that I've inscribed myself, but most of the gold paint has sadly scratched off. Alright, nothing to it. Here I am, just hanging. Whee! And I'm thinking probably the best way to do it. So hook on like that, grab my thing, and start with the dagger. The first sort of thing to do is, what exactly are you climbing and what exactly are you fighting? What I mean by this is, yeah, there should be like different things. Whether you're fighting, talus, like a big stone golem, whether you're fighting a dragon, like different things. I'm not really talking about the texture, but more about the shape of the creature you're fighting. There are different ways to climb many things. In my recent Kraken video, I sort of talked about how you would fight a Kraken, and this is actually part of a good way to do it. For the tentacles. This sort of tree right here would be a decent example of a tentacle. Maybe not in the texture, but in the shape and makeup of it. This would be a good example of what would you do if you find a tentacle, or even in D&D, there are multiple spells of massive vines or creatures like that with large grasping tendrils. Now my best thing to fight this is if you can find a handhold or something like that. Right here is pretty good. Sure, you can do it one-handed, but it's just easy if you just kick your legs up and maybe hook your foot around like that. Grab your dagger. And right now I'm just using the friction between my boots to hold myself in. A good example, if you find a handhold with your grip, then put your foot on the outside and on the inside, you can sort of do a sigil. That was a big tree. A good example you can do with such a thing like this, if it's hard or squishy, is putting your feet on opposite ends of it, using the natural curve of your foot to hook, and while you're grabbing your hand and sort of like squishing and scissoring it together. This gives you a pretty decent grip on a whole lot of things, and as long as you have one hand open, you can just go to town stabbing or doing other sort of thing. And so yeah, that feel like that is pretty efficient if you can get a handhold. Especially with the suckers of a Kraken tentacle, you could possibly put your foot, but you would need some thick soles. If you have a typical, I don't know, say medieval shoe of less like a leather sock, plenty of videos on that, it would actually be very dangerous because the suckers could just attach to that, maybe even pierce through, attach to your foot. Though, on the other hand, if the sucker doesn't get through the leather, it will just attach and you basically just have glue to just attack. What happens after you kill the tentacle stuck to its dead body as you're trying to get away from it? So yeah, that might be the best idea. Now, if this was just a vine or anything like that, there's a lovely little stick here that I can just hold on like this, grab my dagger and I can just do this, and it's so much easier. Just because I have a handhold. Not using just friction, but actually having something physical to hold on to. Such a game changer. Now, the main weapon for an adventurer, in my opinion, is definitely an arming sword or side sword. I originally thought hand and a half swords would be good, but the more I've used them, the more I'm just not a big fan of them. I like just having one thing that does one thing pretty decently well. This is my Spawnman side sword. I got it from Purple Heart Armory, and again, it has Casdual listed all over. All right, so if you find the tentacle and you have a sort of decent grip, can you even? All right, you can get it out, and I've seemed to have come to a reverse grip. Yeah, you can attack this. Maybe even do some sawing action, some stabbing. Yeah, that's perfectly doable with a shorter sword. Though, I did notice something. When I was pulling it out, I could get to here when I was hanging, and it was just really difficult to that last section out. The bulbous end definitely does not help, but that is a thing of just like, too long of a sword may actually be a detriment. Now, if I'm just hanging like this, yeah, that's easy enough. Yeah, that's easy. Like, having a handhold is just such a game changer. Using just friction, that's when things get so much more difficult. Using so much more energy than you need to. I could keep going through all these weapons. Currently, I just have a little hatchet that I'm using for an upcoming event. And yeah, I mentioned in my Kraken video that axes I think would be pretty decent against a tentacle, just because of the cleaving power, getting through and severing nerves or any other sort of thing that's moving the tentacle. I think they'd be pretty good. Plus, they're also multi-purpose, used for a whole bunch of things. Alright, I'm not touching the other one. I've got the axe. Oh, whoa. Alright, second try. Got the axe out, doing some punches, doing some wall-ups. Yeah. Axe I think is totally doable. Like, this is a pretty decent range. I was able to get it out easy and either do punches with it or start stabbing at various parts. If you're fighting on like a ship vessel or anything like that, definitely stay on the deck fighting, because if this thing grabs and throws you in the ocean, that's a very bad situation to be in. Now this is what I'm worried about. This is my longsword Federschwert. I love this thing. It's my favorite sword just because of how light and nimble it is. And it's taken a few beatings. I got this from Wagoneer Armory quite a few years back. I think the handle is nearly perfect. It could be a couple inches longer, but that's just me. And I love it. It's awesome. I am, however, worried on how big it is compared to the little amount of space I have here. Longswords, for the most part, had a variety of lengths, and this is on the longer end of most longswords. And I feel like I might have some difficulty actually attacking with it. I actually had to grab the blade. Let's do that. Pommel strike. Slap, slap, slap. Alright, attached. Grab the sword. Reverse edge. Do that. Do that. Oh. I actually had to grab the blade to pull it out. And this is actually achievable. There's concepts such as half swording where you do grab the blade and can do things, especially in old grappling manuals. And as long as you do it right, you don't actually have to worry about being cut. The sword only really cuts if you slide your hand along or with enough force. And so if you just hold and grasp it, I don't see why you couldn't do that. You'd have to be a bit more careful in how you do it. Additionally, the longsword was just really difficult because I didn't have too many options. I was actually reverse gripping it just so I was in such close range. I'm sure I could use it the proper way, just doing slash cuts, slicing, but it's just so darn big. And honestly, even having it in a scabbard or in a back sheath, I don't even see how you could do that. Now, I should answer the question of why I'm not having the weapon out when I'm doing this. And the reason for that is it's so difficult to climb something with only one hand. It is I can do it if I do a little jump sort of thing, and yeah, it works. And so I can do it if I have a weapon, I can do it. It's just, there's a lot of prep to it. I already have to have a handhold, do a little jump, and then strike. The halberd's actually doing pretty good. I got a lot of options. I can jab, stab. Yeah. Man, the halberd worked really well on that. That was actually a bit surprising. I could not have it sheathed. You don't even sheath halberds. And so this would be something you definitely have to do climbing like this. If I have my handhold here, I'm just doing this. Yeah, heck yeah. This is a rubber halberd tip, so it's safe for sparring. But yeah, that's working really well. And I could even strike other tendrils a bit farther away. Next thing I really wanted to try is how easy it is to hang from something, whether that's like a sloth or just hanging by your feet. Whew. Oh, there's my camera. Hey. So if I do this, where's my dagger? There's my dagger. If I do this, I can definitely stab, do stuff, do that. Yeah, that's totally doable. If you go hand, you can have much more structure. Yeah, that's totally doable. So we got this. Get my sword out. And yeah, I can do things like this. I can go behind. I can do stabs. Yeah, the sword works. Not sure I can put it back. Something that's really tough that I've noticed with that is it's really hard to put them back in the sheath. Just because it's hard to tell where the sheath is. Everything's kind of all over the place because you're upside down. Man, that's difficult. That's difficult. Another discussion I do want to say is getting the blades, getting your weapons out is hard enough. How do you keep them in your sheath when you don't want them to come out? Something I noticed with this, one of the first things I did is how easy it just flipped upside down and it just came right out. An actual sword, this is very loose because this frog is for a different sword. The sort of method I've come up with is especially with my dagger. It's got very long leather cording that I tie around and I tie over the edge. It doesn't completely stop me from getting out. I can just slip them over and then pull it out, but it's just enough that it doesn't come out. And if someone, especially in a bar fight or anything else like that, if someone tries to grab my dagger, it doesn't come out. It takes a little bit of effort for it to get out. It slows you down in the case of emergency, but are your reaction time going to be that fast regardless? Next thing I want to try is, of course, the axe. Alright, I'm hooked in, get my axe, and I just go to town. Yeah, that's easy enough. And if you grab one arm, like this, you can do that. You can even hook, and maybe you can even use the axe as a way to brace yourself. Okay, that was interesting. I just saw something really cool. I saw an opportunity to brace myself with the axe. Did not want to do it with that one because that is a LOP foam one, but this is a thing from Cold Steel. Love it so much. Got my axe. And I'm just hanging. Yep. That's cool. That actually might be a consideration for an adventurer on why they would want to choose an axe. It's useful for a lot of things, like hanging from things or even doing some cool stuff in an urban city, sliding like clotheslines, like a zip line. Here's a good example. Let's see, can I even do this? All right, yes I can. I was actually doubting that. If you hook it well enough and grip it really close to here, you can actually climb. This is actually a pretty decent climbing tool. And I guess if you get something more specialized, something like a ice pick from, a mountain climbing or any other sort of thing, this is actually kind of cool for a climbing adventurer. If you maybe have like a spike at the end, whether for like an ice pick for mountain climbing or anything like that, You could have this in for most of your stuff, fighting, doing whatever, and then you have your ice pick for maybe getting through heavy armor, or maybe, you know, getting into stone. If you're climbing a golem or a talus, you have this, you stab in and use it like an ice pick, just climbing up the surface of the creature. Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's pretty sick. Now, the halberd or the billhook. I'm not entirely sure how I'm gonna do this. Again, I have the wooden haft, so I can put it through here, and hold on. But as you see, I had a lot of trouble with that. And if you do, it's just so much room. That's great if you're fighting an enemy who's farther away and you're doing stuff, but goodness, I don't think it's good for this particular example. I don't think you have the opportunity to just lay it there while you climb. Doesn't seem very good. So maybe I can do this one-handed. Oh, I definitely don't have as good a grip as I want, but I can do things. I can stab, chop, do things. Yeah, but man, that was difficult. And the only reason I was able to do that is because of that. I also think I might have pulled something. That hurt. Ow. So the only reason I was able to do that is because I had a handhold like this. If I say maybe had something like this and I got my legs up, but my legs were not hooked well together. Having this big of a thing, super difficult in such a scenario. If you had such a thing as a folding spear, which there are a few examples, this video is a good example here, it would be possible. If this could fold up to 2, 3, I would be probably hoping at least a fourth of this shaft length, not including the head. It would be doable. You could just put it on you, put it on your back, and when you get up there, then you can do it. And you don't even have to unfold it. You could have it stay folded. Since you're only using about this length when you're this close to something, yeah, just leave it unfolded. That actually might be a really interesting thing for an adventurer to have. The next question is, what if you're on top of the monster? And this is a fantastic example of that. So I don't know if you've ever been on a wakeboard or any sort of thing that's on a moving surface. Like one of those fake islands that you see like lakes or pools, like the blob sort of things. It's very malleable, it's not steady, and that's what's dangerous about it. If you're on a monster, it is not going to be compliant. And thus, it's going to be very difficult to stay on the monster. If you're climbing such a large creature, or having tentacles and stuff, it's going to move it around, it's going to be hard to keep your balance. And this tree, pretty darn good example of that. As long as you have a nice handhold, yeah, this is pretty darn easy. It's when you don't. So if you're just on it while it's moving and shaking and keeping your balance is pretty darn difficult. If we add a sword into the mix, swing it around, the sword actually might help you keep balance. Just having an extra bit of weight is pretty nice. And then if you're fighting, you can strike, do things, stab. Yeah, this is doable. This isn't particularly moving. If it was like maybe 30% moving, if people are like shaking it. If you're fighting someone else up here, that's another whole discussion. I believe Shad also made a different video about that with Living Anachronism. One of my favorite videos they've done. The dagger, you're gonna have to get down low. And people might think this is easier, but it's not. Getting down low, it makes you harder to make corrections unless you just grab down here. Then that, yeah, you can do like the little monster monkey sort of thing. And this is slippery, this is wet. I should have had my other weapons planned before I got up here. They're over there. Alright, so I'm back up here. I've got my axe. The issue one issue with the testing right here is the axe would have a lot heavy. Like having this weight on the end, that makes a huge difference just because of the leverage. And I feel like that might throw you off balance more, having an axe, swinging that and doing stuff. So this isn't the best analog. My other one, it probably isn't gonna be good too. But one thing I guess one thing you could do is hook your axe like that. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, that's good. If you hook your axe, like even now with this foam one, that's giving you just a little bit of stability to sort of hang on, even though it won't actually support my weight. The other one will probably do even better. And with an actual axe, with that little hook that's sort of like right here, you can just stab it in and like it'll just like be jabbed and just like stay. If you have one sword hooked, whether it's a spike or an axe, you can just attack from this way or fight someone else over here. I want to do that. I want to make another video about this method, fighting another person, because one of the main issues with fighting someone else on a beam or a board, especially with Shad adversities and living in anachronisms videos, is having trouble staying on while fighting. Having a different weapon just to hold on while you fight with something else, oh, that's a lovely idea. I'm gonna do that. Now, if you have such a weapon like a halberd, it kind of acts like a balancing pole. Having a pole, you can attack with both ends, stab. I feel like the halberd, it works pretty well and helps you out with balance. Though if this was wheel, you'd have to not do that. Alright, thank you all for watching this episode of the Fantasy Survival Guide. Praying you all have a good day. God bless your adventures. Adios.